You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm your Judge Advocate General, Kelvin, and with me today on the bench are Magistrates Christos, Amy, and Kristin. I don't think we need to say which series we're doing today. Maybe that's given away. How are you doing, Amy?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm ready to defend. Very excited to be here talking Star Trek.
Yay! And Kristin, order. How are you?
Order in the courtroom. Hi. Yes. Things are good.
Brilliant.
I'm excited for this episode. One of the quintessentials when people say, "How do I get into Star Trek?" This is one of the episodes I give them. So.
Oh, the big build-up. And Christos, finally, how are you?
I'm amazing. And I'm just going to echo what Kristin just said right there. This is like an episode I give people when they want to know about Star Trek. I say, here, go watch this.
Brilliant. Now, before we get to point of order and order in the courtroom today, I mean, we're not doing a full-on escape pod. We said we would wait till next week, but has everyone seen Lower Decks this week?
Yes.
Have you not, Kristin?
I haven't.
Right.
I have not touched the season. I have stayed away from all major spoilers, and I'm going to binge it over my holiday break.
Right. Oh, I don't know what we can. I don't think we can say.
Mute your audio. You can mute your audio real fast.
I saw a certain picture.
Oh, dear.
So you know.
Yesterday, and I wasn't sure if it was fan art, but I'm assuming it's not just fan art. And if so, I think a lot of people are very excited.
Oh, mind blown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say
twice. Sorry, Amy. I was that taken aback by everyone that appeared on screen that when it got to the science at the end of the episode with the high drama, it just wasn't going in. My head was full. So when James walked in from work, and I said, "You must watch it. Stay away from social media." I watched it again just so I could take in additional information, and that's the first time that has happened with Star Trek for a long time. Just what a delight.
Yeah.
I love that you got to experience that then, because that type of emotional response to a show is why we consume media, right? And I find that so much stuff out there is so bland and does not have that reaction anymore, that when we get that joy again, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I would like to little self-promote. If you'd like to hear my thoughts, go back a couple days. I was a guest on Infinite Diversity. So
awesome.
Wow. Oh, so you've already dissected it in great detail.
Yes.
Brilliant. I was just kind of fiddle-faddling with the remote on Wednesday night, and I have Apple TV, and it said there's a new episode of Lower Decks, and I'm like, it's 9:05 or something like that. I'm like, it's not supposed to be out yet. So I'm like, well, I'm watching it. I'm wide awake. So I tuned in, and I'm very glad I did. It was one after another, and I remember I put a little note in there. It's like, hey, avoid all social media and watch it as soon as you can, because it was a big one.
I think I woke up, saw your message, fell back asleep, and then forgot that you'd said it.
Well, now I'm really excited for this coming weekend. I'm just going to sit down, put my straw in my bottle of wine, and binge the entire season.
Yeah, well, you be careful how much you drink, because this is episode 9, and you need to be fully compos mentis by the time you get to this one. So, you know.
Okay, I'll be fine.
Warning. Why don't you tell the listeners what series we are doing today, please, Amy?
Well, if you haven't figured out, we are continuing our Courtroom series, part 2, with Star Trek The Next Generation, The Drumhead. Season 4, right?
Yes.
Season 4, yeah.
Quite late into season 4. I think it's like 21, 22
Yeah.
or something around there.
22.
Around there.
Yeah.
And Kristin,
You can tell by
Sorry.
how pregnant Gates McFadden is.
Oh,
Brilliant. And Kristin, you said this is a nice little gateway trek. So if you're passionate about this episode, why don't you remind the listeners a little bit about the synopsis? What happens in the episode?
I'd love to. In this episode, it is revealed that a Klingon spy is aboard the Enterprise, and it gives rise to a wider witch hunt. And then when a retired Admiral Norah Satie makes it her obsession to find a conspiracy, whether one exists or not.
Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Duh.
Dun.
So I think this episode is there's a wealth of guest stars in this episode to begin with. So let's get straight in there with looking at Miss Norah Satie, and what were some of her motivations? What made her, in my words, bitter and twisted? So anyone who wants to start? Go on, Christos.
Well, I put this under the next section, but I think it really does fit the answer to your question. And I just put, she is all about sheer effing hubris. She has an ego that she needs to feed. She's very self-righteous. She believes, I believe she loves the accolades of being good at her job. So she needs a big win no matter what to maintain her reputation. And that is Norah Satie.
Yeah.
well, and in part, you can almost see her progression because she has been heralded as this great judge. Her career backs up sort of her hubris. And she's even retired, and they bring her out of retirement. She is the one and only person who can solve this mystery, right? That's what she's believing. So when you're being pulled out of retirement, you're like, oh, I'm a pretty darn important person. So I think that sort of adds to her motivations, and why she thinks that she is all of that in a bag of chips.
Is that what you're like in the classroom these days, Amy? You've been pulled out of retirement. I'm sure you go easy on them kids.
Yeah.
Well, and over and above that, let's not forget that she has this last name attached to her. And sometimes last names and familial lineages carry a lot of pressure with them. So there is this living up to her father's great footsteps and being in that enormous shadow. And I mean, it sounds like Judge Aaron Satie was a great man. And we know by that quote at the end that he had a very, what was it? I don't even know. Like his quote about the censure of speech and all of that is just so impactful and very relevant for today. That's just a quick sidebar. But we know that he paved a way that was legitimate, and she's doing everything she can to try and live up to that. And that includes sometimes finding issues where there's no issues to be found.
Yeah. And clearly she was good at her job because she has received all of this fanfare and, almost celebrity rating. So it's interesting that we just see this one snapshot of her. Has she always been a little bit on the side? Who knows? Or is this just an effect of struggle to stay relevant and the fact that a lot of people who have powerful positions struggle to retire because they're so used to being king of their castle, queen of their castle?
Just look at politicians.
With the American justice system, case in point, our Supreme Court and whatnot. I was going to say too, to your point, her tactics that she used in this episode are probably always been her tactics. She's just probably not used to being challenged by a man like Picard.
Yeah. I was just going to say that. Who knows how many times she's tried to pull this stunt, but she's never met the likes of Picard and his ethics.
It's interesting when you say about those tactics. In my job, they call it the smiling assassin, and she's so complimentary to Worf, to Picard at the beginning. She's saying constantly, "Well done, that's amazing," bigging these people up to recruit little cronies around her, and then on a knife edge just will turn and take them down. And you just see it a lot in the workplace, I find, these behaviors. But in my role as a safety inspector, you will walk around and smile and say, "Thank you for that information. Let me observe this, ask a question." And then at the end, during a debrief, you would list off all of the non-conformances and things that are wrong. And people will say, "But you've been smiling all day."
Keeping your hand held close to your chest there. Well, look what she did to Worf. I mean, she brought Worf in right from the beginning. Good job, Lieutenant. And then she flipped on him on a dime, just like that. And I kind of put here in my notes, I'm like, and I kind of asked this to all of you guys, did you like her at first? If you go back to the first time you watched this episode, I know we're going back, but I liked her at first. I was all, and then you start to see the real her. And I think the writers did an amazing job with that. What do you guys think?
I also find it interesting that she went straight for Worf, who, as we know, has just been through a lot personally. And he is, though he's got the facade of being this strong Klingon, he's wounded inside. He is looking for acceptance. He's just been through discommendation. There is a lot happening in his that makes him ready to follow any leader that is going to give him that type of acceptance that he's looking for. And it's almost like she could seek out and find that insecurity, like she was preying on the vulnerable. And it's really funny to call a Klingon vulnerable, but he was in this episode.
Yeah. I think this is another great example. I may have said this quite recently of, I look at this episode in a completely different way as an adult than I did as a teenager. And I'm sure that's true for an awful lot of Star Trek, but the whole workplace politics that we probably all experienced as adults that you wouldn't have recognized as a younger person, to deal with these toxic troublemakers in the workplace who just make environments terrible to work in. And I started thinking about her relationship with Picard. Why did it suddenly become all about Picard? Was it just because he disagreed with her? What do we think? Amy, you had your hand up then.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing with, she is not only trying to solve this mystery of, is there corruption, is there sabotage, but she attacks Picard and brings in all this extra, well, did you know that you broke the prime directive X number of times? And would that surprise you? And it's like, it literally has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. And that's sort of where you can see, I think that's the precipice of her going to the wrong side of this. Now truly is a witch hunt. She's lost her mind. She's bringing in everything. She's going to grab at anything that's wrong and shove it in your face. That's not what a courtroom should be.
Right. It's smear tactics and tearing down one's character in order to imply guilt, which is, obviously very wrong. It's kind of surprising that it's allowed to go as far as it does in this episode. This is one of those very few Star Trek episodes, especially for season 4 TNG, where it references so much other Trek that came before, where having watched Best of Both Worlds or having watched Conspiracy or, Worf's discommendation and all that, you kind of need that backstory to understand how unfair Satie is being.
Yeah. which is one reason why I suggest this to people, because it has so many little tentacles that reach out. It encourages them to be like, oh, I need to know what happened to Worf. Oh, what is this conspiracy? And I'm like, conspiracy's fun. Conspiracy, that's a fun episode. But going back, Christos, to what you said is, did I like her at first? I did not. And I remember being very distrustful of her because I have always found anyone who comes in with too much of a level of confidence, I don't trust those people. I just don't. There is something very inhuman about somebody who is that almost full of themselves. Whereas like there's something being covered here. You have all these blaring insecurities. So what? No. Plus, I mean, we watched, there was like a preview, and so we all knew that she was the bad guy. Next week on Next Generation.
Yes.
It is interesting when you just call her the bad guy. You think about a normal narrative for an episode. There's like an alien of the week or a baddie or, the Romulans, etc. Is she really a bad guy? Or should she elicit some sympathy for us that she's become this? She's almost like a Disney villain. I think I mentioned further down, like Maleficent. You can imagine her going around just going, fools, imbeciles. She's almost, in another world, the gays would love her.
Well, I think that's part of especially the actress. I mean, she's got that nice accent to her, and she's so dignified. And you could tell she's old Hollywood, right? And so you kind of like, oh, she's classy, and oh, good on Star Trek for spending a little bit of money on the guest star this week, right? You just kind of like, oh, she has an air of dignity about her, the way she carries herself. And like I said, liking it at first, I was probably 10 years old when this episode came out, maybe 12, somewhere in there. So not quite as fooled by some of the things that you talked about, Kelvin, being able to see through that. But it is, sheer effing hubris, the way she carries herself. I mean, she walks around like she's the queen.
Yeah, I liked her at the beginning, Christos, when I first saw it, because she's saying the right things. Like, well, we don't want to have a trial behind closed doors that breeds, rumors and hearsay and, the chitter chatter. And, well, we need to figure this out. Like, she's saying the right things at the beginning. Let me team up. My guy Sabin with Worf, they're working well together. She's cooperating. So there's reasons to like her because she's doing the right things. We just don't get her motivation until later.
Yeah.
Doing the right thing for the wrong reasons.
Yes.
And I also think that this shows different types of leadership that can come from people. And so I think one of the most dangerous types of leadership are the charismatic leaders, where they just use that personality and some sort of je ne sais quoi to get people to follow them. And we've seen the leaders that have risen to power through charismatic leadership throughout history. And it is because they have nothing behind them to actually, well, in this case, she does because she's had a successful career. But, they don't have a lot of like facts, and in this case she didn't have a ton of facts. We found out that there were like zero, and she just kept riling people up with her rhetoric, and we're seeing that again today. How dangerous these types of leaders can be because they just know who to aim at. Not to make this political, but
it's really hard not to, because this character type, this leader, this person in a position of influence is dangerous because of the way they operate, and kind of surrounding themselves with these sycophantic, colleagues that, it's almost high school bully behavior. She's the leader of her gang. She's got these cronies around her. It's a very, very dangerous place. I've had experience in the workplace with someone exactly like this. She was so competent and accurate at every piece of work she did, but would not respect anything less than perfection in other people. So would walk around just constantly slagging off people, saying they're useless, they're rubbish. and was always deemed to be in the right because she was such a high performer, and then was promoted into a leadership position on the board of directors, and the culture of the business just completely transformed into fear and intimidation because people were too afraid to say anything, otherwise they would incur the wrath of this leader who would have previously complimented them and then just turn on them, call them useless idiots.
Yeah.
She's a little bit of a Dolores Umbridge, I think.
Yes. Yeah, a lot like that.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to have seen her backstory explored and see, like, is she actually this great, or did she somehow fake it till she made it throughout her entire career?
Brilliant.
I don't think so. I think there are some clues in this episode when she's talking to Picard early on, and she realizes that Picard studied her father's works. She really gets caught up in a very proud way of talking about her father and how she admired him and her upbringing and whatnot. So I think this is a case of, just someone gone the wrong way. It's not, I don't think she intends to be that way, but she really did start off like trying to do what she believes, I think, is right. But the tactics she employs are the wrong.
Well, I think, that can show that power corrupts. She started out, we are assuming, with, this good upbringing and supportive family and probably doing the right things. And, Starfleet still regards her as well. But, she's got this power and she comes in full force. And another intimidation, like right at the very beginning when Picard's talking to her in his ready room. And he's like, well, I wonder what Starfleet thinks about this. What do they? And she's like, I don't think I'm at liberty to say what Starfleet thinks. And like, she's controlling the information. Who has the information? That's where the power is. And she starts right at the beginning saying, I'm the one with the power. I'm the one that's going to be making the decisions because I have all the information.
Yeah. I think another thought I just had that is really with that too is the hypocrisy of her, because she claims to adore her father, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the law and Starfleet and her reverence for everything is there, but she's not walking the talk.
No.
And I think we see that quite a bit right now, and unfortunately in our politics and whatnot, are people who are claiming to be so self-righteous, but they are blatantly hypocrites. And I think that also is Norah Satie.
In a lot of environments, results speak. And if she's had this long career of being good at her job, clearly the numbers she's been working to, whether it's successful prosecutions, amount of conspiracies she's uncovered, whatever, clearly on the paper, she's really good. But there's a lot of people who are in positions of authority and power who simply haven't had no said to them enough.
Yeah.
Therefore, a lot of behaviors have been compounded and consolidated, and it just breeds this horrendous culture, as I said earlier. And that's kind of what I think her backstory is, Kristin, to your point. I think there's not been any kind of evil there or intention to do bad. She has just been allowed to fester and become this character.
You know what her storyline almost reminds me of, and I don't know how much our listeners are going to know, but Rocky, where he starts off, very good. Rocky 1, Rocky 2, he's this guy, he's doing his thing, he's killing it at it. Then Rocky 3 comes along, he loses to Clubber Lang, and suddenly it's revealed to him that all of the fights that he's had since beating Apollo have been setups. So he's reached this point, this pinnacle in his career, but then he has to realize that, am I actually as good as I think I am, or have people patted my way to the top? So I'm wondering, like, were the cases that she did, were they actually legitimate cases, or was she, because of her last name, just set up with these easier cases, these slam dunk situations that led her to the success. I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but it's what came to my mind with my rewatch this week was, were her past cases actually challenging, or is she just always used to being handed a win?
Are there any, I mean, we've done pretty successful character assassination for the prosecution here. Are there any redeemable qualities to this woman? Is there any cases for the defense?
Well, like I said, she's saying the right things at the beginning. You know, sort of, let's have things out in public. There's nothing to hide.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I think having it out, I'm going to disagree with that, Amy, because I think having it out in the public was very tactical. She wanted to make Picard uncomfortable and squirm and tear him down in front of his people. That was that. I think her motivation for that was very much in the wrong. I will say that I think she, like I said, I think in the end of the day, she thinks she's doing something right, but she just gets obsessed with what she's doing. And like I said, she's seeing conspiracies where they don't exist. I think she's paranoid, probably to an extent.
Yeah. I'll give her a redeeming quality. She's well educated.
Yes. Very good.
She's a well educated woman. She knows a lot about the fallacies of logic, obviously through her discussion with Picard. Even though she goes on to commit a lot of those fallacies in this episode.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, she's obviously educated. So
I did like her outfits.
Oh,
yes.
Well, in that case, no more questions, Your Honor. Let us move on. And I imagine we'll be a little bit more defensive about our next subject. Shall we talk about poor Simon Tarses? Bless him. A cute little twink in a teal uniform.
Yeah,
he's going to elicit a lot more heart, I think.
My headcanon is that he's gay.
The first thing I did say just before we hit record, the lack of legal process in this episode. You know, I know we're calling it a courtroom episode and they call it a hearing, but you know, for all intents and purposes, you're there, you're on the stand, sat down, and people are firing questions at you. This is more than just a traditional HR process. This is courtroom. Simon Tarses was dragged in. He wasn't charged with anything. He was subjected to all of this public questioning. He had Riker assigned to him as legal counsel. You know, he wasn't even read rights. I mean, obviously the legal system in the future would be completely different, but you'd be questioned under caution. It was absolute bollocks, pardon my French. Ridiculous. What do we think?
That's what the Drumhead trials were. And I was saying this before we pressed. I think it was in response to what you said, where last night I was looking up the history of Drumhead trials. And the picture that comes up on Wikipedia when you go to read about them is just a dude sitting at an upended drum, a tree behind him, and a bunch of bodies hanging from the tree. And that's what this was. These trials were off the beaten path. They had no processes, nothing. It was pretty much like going into a Cardassian courtroom. Do you remember that episode from DS9 where pretty much they're assumed guilty and the only point of the defense is just to solidify that it's not even a defense? And so this is very much along that line where there were no processes, and that's why the title of this episode is so apt. Because it very much was that Drumhead where, no, you're guilty. I don't care what the evidence says, what you say, what the rule of law is, and hang.
Yeah, even with Worf being, you know, the weak-minded fool in this one, he's like, well, if you didn't have anything he wasn't hiding anything, why did he take the Fifth Amendment or whatever we want to call it, you know, like, you know, the Starfleet equivalent thereof. And it's like, no, there's more to that. And there's, you know, Picard has to be that voice of reason that, you know, you're innocent until proven guilty, not the other way around.
Exactly. Yeah. And also the problem of taking this to opening up the proceedings so quickly is the court of public opinion is sometimes worse than anything else. So even though technically at the end Tarses was found to not have been part of the conspiracy, his family history was revealed to everybody on the ship, and that's pretty much what had him in ruin. Is when people are, because who was the guy who was wrongly accused of being, was it the Boston bomber or one major event down in the States, and his picture circulated around online and his name got out and his entire life was ruined. But even when it came out that he was not the guilty party, it didn't matter.
late.
The damage was done.
Well,
and
like, and there's so many things with that, like, accusing, a man of rape, know, no matter what, innocent or not, that sticks with you. You never get rid of that.
Nope.
It's come up a lot lately with the Central Park Five,
Yep.
who were found to be innocent. But Donald Trump had put an ad in the full-page ad in the New York Times, basically, calling these guys guilty and demanding that they, whatever. I forget what it said, but it was like, you're innocent until proven guilty, not the other way around.
Yeah.
But you're right. The court of public opinion is huge, because once your reputation is damaged, it's really hard to get that back. That doesn't just go away. Normally, and by the way, retractions often get printed in fine print on page 35, not, even though you had a front page that took down your character.
Yeah. And I think
Very
that's
true.
one reason Picard was so upset when they started opening the doors, because he's like, we're not here yet. There has been no evidence, no decisions whatsoever. This questioning, it doesn't have a place. It doesn't have a place until we find out the facts.
Yeah.
So what do we think about Sabin saying within 10 seconds, I think we've got the man? Just because he's a betazoid, he sensed that he was hiding something. You got, judge, jury, executioner, straight in, we've got him.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about this is they did a lot of questioning and commentary in the episode about the things the audience would be saying. And it's a great example of Picard being so great, because he would say things that the audience would say. So they brought in to say, well, don't you ever use your betazoid counselor during interrogations, which he does. So I don't know, Amy, obviously you're such a big Troy fan, but to me, this had me on the fence saying, would it be admissible evidence in a courtroom situation to use somebody's thoughts and feelings against them as a prosecutor? So as the big diehard Troy fan, what do you think?
Yeah, no, you can't condemn someone. I mean, this is not Gattaca or anything, you're going to be condemned just because you think it. But I love the fact that, Picard's like, yeah, that's not right. No, we need evidence, not just this emotion. And then Satie's like, but you have a counselor, Troy. Don't you listen to her counsel? I'm just listening to my counsel. So that is a very, very interesting discussion to have, because it is unethical. Thankfully, Troy, for the most part, doesn't really say anything that we don't already know.
The ship is
hiding
very
something.
upset.
Yeah.
As it's on fire.
We see this in Star Trek on a couple occasions coming to mind. I'm thinking of Undiscovered Country, where even Uhura goes, so I felt the way he did, but we don't get prosecuted for our feelings. And maybe even in Attached, when Crusher and Picard are attached and he's kind of yelling at her, she's like, I thought it, I didn't say it, so you can't judge me for my thoughts.
Yeah. But I also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't think of a situation where he took her advice or anything at the end all be all. I always found he used her counsel as a guidance in his investigations and in his thinking patterns, but he never just said, oh, this is what Troy said, period.
There is an example.
Okay, perfect. I'm
but
seeing
it's not Picard. It's a great example again of Picard being great. So when Troy was on the Romulan vessel in Face of the Enemy, and she said that Corvellan captain's lying, Nivek just blew the ship up based on that. Now, clearly, that's a Romulan.
That's not Picard. No.
Picard's never really done. He's
But
almost.
Go
Thank you for telling me they're hiding something. Let me use questioning technique to find out what that is.
Yeah. But Amy, your face looks like I might have missed something.
Well, I think he's definitely done it. The first one to come to my mind was with Guinan in yesterday's Enterprise. Like, it was her feeling, and he acted on that alone with no evidence.
Good point.
But he had to be brought about to that. I mean, he didn't just, it wasn't an impulse decision. He had to be convinced over the course of the episode that, but it's a good point. It is one. I think the Romulan one is like, this is why you don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Romulans, can we just explore that a little bit? So, again, sometimes too much knowledge is you go down your rabbit hole. But so clearly, Simon Tarses didn't want to reveal that he's got Romulan ancestry. Why? Is it just stigma related, or would this be some kind of breach? Yes, he lied on his application, but I'm going into like the Una mode now with augmentation. Are Romulans not allowed in Starfleet? Is it, illegal? What do we think?
I would use, well, you can go back and forth with this. Lieutenant Savick, who was written to be half Romulan, half Vulcan, and served in Starfleet. It kind of got ignored after. It didn't technically get said in Wrath of Khan. It didn't get mentioned again, but then it kind of became canon again somewhere, I think. So there might be a precedent indirectly for someone of Romulan descent serving in Starfleet. So I can't seem. Do you think we'd be that bigoted in Starfleet to say just because you look at Worf? I mean,
yeah, Nog.
Well, yeah, there's always the first.
Yeah, but this is the thing. So if it's not illegal to apply to become a member of Starfleet, if you're 1/4 Romulan, that means he's hiding it because of bigotry in Federation society, which shocks me that you're led to believe the Federation is this utopia of acceptance and and all you hear is no augments, no Romulans, no this. No. There's a lot of rules, and clearly there's a bit of an undercurrent of bigotry here in Federation. Again, the simile, it's very much that kind of, he's been forced out of the closet.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I think it's an allegory for gays in the military.
I thought the same thing, actually. Like a don't ask, don't tell type of thing.
Yeah.
Going back into my workplace mode now, I actually chair the impartiality committee at work. And if the Worf should have had, he should have declared, yes, it's in my responsibilities of chief of security that I should be doing these things. However, there's all this stuff going on with his discommendation, meaning the investigation of the Klingon officer Jadan in the first place. He could have been seen as lacking impartiality in that aspect. And then there's also the once it was uncovered that Tarses was hiding a Romulan ancestry, the attack on Kittimer, the loss of his parents, that would have been argued as you're too close to this. Maybe it's not for you to get involved. And yeah, it just made me think Worf has been played here again as someone who, for all his strength and integrity, is very easy to manipulate by the fact he's so loyal to command. He's very good at doing what he's told, Worf.
Yeah. I mean, he's a bit of a tool in this episode. Yeah. I mean, and by the way, he's working really, 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 really hard in this episode. Why wasn't he working this hard during the events of Suspicions? I'm just going to throw that out there because Kristin and I talked about that a couple weeks ago.
Great callback.
Wasn't doing.
Where were you? Where were
you? Poor Beverly's doing this all by herself, and Worf's just on a smoke break.
I think again, this shows the fact that Worf is an orphan a few times over. Right? He lost his parents. Then he was adopted by humans. So then he kind of lost his culture. You can tell by how desperate he is for Alexander to become a true Klingon and all of this, that that may have been stuff that he missed out on.
Yeah.
And then he kind of gets in with his culture and his people, and then he's an orphan again through the discommendation. And I think that showing that despite the rough facade and that strength that they put out, Klingons have just as many emotions and fallacies as us lowly little humans. And I think that's a very interesting thing to look at in this episode, is this guy is so alone. He is desperate for acceptance.
A case for the defense of war.
Yes.
Thank you for the balance.
I mean, I don't think that would necessarily change my opinion on his performance review of this episode, but I can kind of understand. Again, I work with people with disabilities, and a lot of times if they themselves have also experienced issues where they have not, a lot of times their parents give them up at birth. They've been in the system their whole life. It's hard for them to fit in at school, et cetera, et cetera. It is a very hard life for them to live. And then when they get to a point where suddenly these people start preying on them, but all they see is, oh, this is attention. This is the love and acceptance I want. And it's a dangerous situation. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here, just with the insecurities of Worf and this desperation to feel love or acceptance or appreciation.
Yeah. Shall we take a look at some assimilations and regenerations for this episode? I'm going to start off. I think we've already said it, haven't we, Christos? But the fashion in this episode, I think, Loaxana Troy should be worried here, because this queen is coming for her award.
Yeah.
That gown with the neckline and the pendant, exquisite.
Yes. Now, I know she's temporarily out of retirement, but she is acting as an admiral, right? Like, should she not been in uniform? Or,
Right.
I think we know the off-screen version for why she wasn't, but, but technically, should she have been? Or is this a case of Troy running around in whatever she's going to wear, even though she should be in a uniform too?
Yeah. I think any role that commands respect in a hierarchy like Starfleet should come with a uniform, and the uniform is a uniform because everybody wears it. So when you don't wear it, you stand out. But even the Klingon fashion in this episode, I don't know if you looked very closely at what Jadan was wearing. It was really, really beautiful. It was like a suede jacket with fringing on the arms, but it still had the Klingon metal vertebrae down the back. It was Klingon leisure wear at its finest. I was like, I'd love that.
Yeah.
Well, and Admiral Satie's helper, the tall, slender lady with that mesh long. I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. It looked so beautiful. And I want to cosplay that.
This was the episode of caftans. And you know me, I love a good caftan. I have my collection. And that gave me life. I was like, yes, these are going to be in fashion for a long time.
Timeless.
But also, one thing real quick about not being in uniform, Admiral Nechayev would never be in uniform. Never.
Very true.
Yeah.
Amy, any assimilations for you?
Oh, yes. I really enjoyed, this must have been a new set, the interrogation room. Like, that backdrop of the blue background was so interesting. It added to sort of the feel and excitement of this is new. And I really liked that set. So well done.
Christos, have you got any assimilations?
One's kind of a little bit funny. I was watching it this morning, and in that first scene with Worf where he has to walk into the ready room and Picard's already talking to Satie, and he has to explain the technobabble of how genetically it's being scanned on the isolinear chip, and it's being encoded, and it's being put into the person's bloodstream, and blah, blah, blah. That's a lot of talking and a lot of technobabble for Michael Dorn, and I could tell he was struggling with it. So I only imagine how many takes that probably was. And not to mention with Gene Simmons being in that scene too. I would have been a little nervous as it was, just for the people I'm acting with. So I just thought it was funny to see Worf get a lot of technobabble, which is very not in character for Worf.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Dorn is sitting there like, this is not what I signed up for.
Can't Dr. Crusher explain all this with me? Like, bring her too.
Right? What is this?
Any assimilations for you, Kristin?
Well, again, you know me, I really enjoy the callbacks. So this episode was just full of them, everywhere from Sins of the Father to Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2, Conspiracy. So, and again, as standalones, those are some of my favorite episodes. So to have them all brought into and referenced in this phenomenal episode is just made my little heart smile so much.
Brilliant. I'm going to throw one in again. What's wrong with me? I'm in full-on work mode today. I can't shake it. But it was a fantastic accident investigation that Data and Geordi did. That is a day in the life of Kelvin, following an accident, a detailed investigation to find out what's gone on. And in this case, there was a failure in the equipment, and it was beautifully explained and completely put to bed. Chef's kiss.
Yeah.
That health and safety at its finest.
Really liked the camera angles. So kudos to the director. I didn't
Jonathan
look him up.
Frakes.
Oh, well then that's why. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Christos. Like the way that, like, when they were coming down the elevator and engineering, just that angle.
I noticed that.
Yeah. And like, it was so, especially in the interrogation room, how the camera captured it. I really felt like I was in the room because it was capturing from my perspective. Really, really well done.
That one angle where they're shooting up from the warp core and you can see them standing in front of where the explosion was. And you're at the lower level shooting up through the gangway. And I was like, wow, this things you've never seen on Star Trek. And this must have been one of his first directing episodes. I mean, it's season 4, so he would have been early on for Frakes.
And speaking of first, we've seen the isolation door in front of the warp core come down locked, but you never see it from behind. You only ever see it from the Master Systems display looking forward at the warp core blocked off. You never see it from the warp core looking out. So this episode gives us the only viewable evidence of what the back of that door looks like.
Yeah, that's right.
Amy, speaking of you bringing up the interrogation room, little trivia here. This is the second appearance of the interrogation room after the defector. And it is a modification of the bridge of the original USS Enterprise as seen in the first 3 movies.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Right. It was a redress set, but it was the bridge redressed.
Wow.
That's
history there.
That's cool. Also, a fun fact about this episode, it was called a bottle episode, which means it just had the one story. Came in $250,000 under budget.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And as a bottle episode, it's usually referring to the fact that it's all taking place on the ship and doesn't have a big special effects budget, and they don't have to go on location or build any other sets. So they save a little bit of money on production.
So there we go with being able to get Gene in.
Well, if they're the assimilations, what have we got for regenerations? Christos, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I have 2, so I'll give you one for now. I think it's a little bit lame that it's a huge coincidence that the spy sent the images to the Romulans of the warp core schematics, but the explosion, which just happened a week later, just happened to be a major coincidence. What are the chances of this really, really, really happening? That not just anywhere on the ship, like we're going to have this one malfunction and it just so happened that this information got turned over. You could almost see why Satie doesn't buy it. It's way too much of a coincidence. And I think it's a little too convenient that it turns out to be an accident.
Coincidences do happen.
I always find, though, that I remember seeing that and what I took from it was never say never, right? Like, don't just, I don't know. I think that taught me a lot about like, don't just assume, right? It makes an ass out of you and me. And I felt like there was a lot of assuming going on in this episode. And this was proof that sometimes, even though the chances of it happening are 0.0001, it's not impossible. It's an improbability, but not an impossibility. So,
yeah.
But I see the frustration there, Christos. I see that. Yeah.
Speaking of that, I mean, why was Satie brought out of retirement? It was a huge regeneration for me because it just made me think, surely there was a serving prosecutor, investigator, admiral, whatever, that could have done this job. Sure.
Yeah.
Were they just going past her retirement home and thought, yeah, go on, we'll get her while we're here? Where was the rest of Starfleet?
Maybe she has a history with espionage or something. There was the conspiracy, a little bit of that. I think we can make up whatever we want. It's convenient to call her semi out of retirement so we can explain why she's not wearing a uniform for one. I mean, it could be that simple.
Or maybe people are just causing chaos across the Federation. There are so many trials going on. Everyone's busy.
Yeah, too many admirals.
Yeah, that's a really good point because there's going to be conflict on the ship. There's going to be some kind of HR protocol or, and it's like, all right, it could have been handled in-house. So yeah, good point.
Yeah. There's some other things with her that don't quite add up. Just if we're going to throw out some regenerations. She has no friends, she says, but she's been in retirement. Haven't you made any friends now that you're retired?
Are you not playing pickleball?
And she got her staff back, it's revealed. But like we'll assume she hasn't been working with them for a year or two, but they've just kind of all fallen right back into their roles. So I don't know. There's just a little bit of it's said all in the beginning and then it's kind of played the other way.
Yeah. Kristin, have you got a regeneration?
I just want to circle back real quick and just finish the thought about why Norah Satie. Because Admiral Thomas Henry shows up at the end and like has power to call. Why wasn't he just there in the first place?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I think my only regeneration, because again, I look at this episode as being essentially perfect. It's my Mary Poppins episode, practically perfect in every way. There was not enough Zidane. He was a very compelling character, but he was only there for the first little bit. Then he's scurried away. I wish there had been the possibility to have had him featured more in this episode because I wanted to know more about Zidane.
Yeah. I get what you're saying there. And I think maybe it makes sense that, okay, this was kind of, the idea was this was an open and shut case. They figured it out pretty fast, but Satie just kept it going. Yeah. I think the other admiral shows up because it's not just open and shut the way it was. Now she's basically saying, I'm going after the captain and whatnot. So maybe this other admiral is like, more oversight coming in. I don't know. Just, you can play it a lot of different ways to make that make sense. But
I'm just going to finish off with the regeneration, which I think is we might be in trope territory here of reusing the external shot that here's another admiral arriving in an Excelsior class starship. They're basically the Uber XL, Uber exec of the 24th century, that everyone arrives in an Excelsior. They're like a taxi.
Yeah, it is the Admiral's taxi. I have one more thing, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong here. It's a technical question. So for most of the episode, the Enterprise's warp core is shut down because of the accident, right? But the nacelles are all lit up throughout the whole episode. Like, wouldn't the nacelles be off? We've seen that in other episodes when the warp core is taken offline. The nacelles no longer light up. So is that a production error that the nacelles are lit up the entire episode? Even though the warp core.
That's a really good question. I mean, there's other parts of the nacelles, like the Bussard collectors, which have their own independent function apart from just generating a warp field. So maybe they were active, but yeah, I get it.
The blue and the red are on. Let's just let's get real simple there.
If anything, they're wasting energy.
I mean, if you think,
electricity is expensive these days.
If you think of the beginning of the beginning of Arsenal of Freedom, where they're realigning the dilithium, and that's why they can't jump to go help Troy sooner. The nacelles are off because the warp core's offline while the dilithium's being realigned.
Good spot.
Mm-hmm.
Right, shall we rattle through some trivia? There's quite a lot for this episode.
Yeah.
So, Kristin, would you like to start us off, please?
Yeah, as previously mentioned, there was no B plot to this episode, which always stands out as an uncommon style in the Berman era episodes, where this focused on just one story alone. But I mean, any B plot, I'm sorry, no one would remember the B plot. This, right? Like, they're like, let's not waste any sort of side story on this because the A plot is so elite.
Yep. Just like Suspicions, it was very much no B plot, and it's all about investigation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's going to be common to this series that we're running.
Right?
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, as we discussed last week, Jerry Taylor wrote the script based on a story idea Ronald D. Moore had proposed called It Can't Happen Here. Taylor's aim was to show that witch hunts along the lines of the Salem witch trials could happen even in the enlightened 24th century if individual liberties and freedoms were breached, even if only slightly, in the name of preserving the Federation. She remarked, quote, "It's a very provocative story and one which is a little darker than some of the others," end quote.
Yeah, and what a great episode. I mean, it's like we just said last week, it's one of those top TNGs.
Yep.
Jonathan Frakes had previously appeared with Gene Simmons on North and South. He described being able to cast her in this episode as a dream come true. To Frakes' surprise, he learned that Simmons was a monstrous Trekkie. So we love her even more now.
I love that.
Yeah, I really do. Aside from like hating her as a Badmiral, I do love the performance of the actress.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Big high
100%.
win.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Her passive aggressive acting, just chef's kiss. Like nobody could do. Like, oh my gosh, it gave me some PTSD from some other strong female figures I've had in my life. That's how good it was.
Mm.
Well, this is the final episode to have music composed by Ron Jones. Jones was fired shortly afterward for repeatedly arguing with Rick Berman and Peter Lauritsen over what type of music was thought to be appropriate for the series. Berman subsequently asked Dennis McCarthy if he would be willing to act as the sole music composer for the series, but McCarthy turned the offer down, citing that the resulting workload, including his non-Trek projects, would be too much for him. So Berman brought in Jay Chataway on board as Jones' replacement.
Cool. Drama
in the music department.
Yeah, leave it to the musicians to be catty.
This next one is very interesting. A scene was filmed on Friday, the 22nd of February, 1991, and it was deleted from the final episode. According to the call sheet, the scene would be, I think it's pages 12 through 14 in sickbay, and feature Gates McFadden, Michael Dorn, Spencer Garrett, and regular background performers Michael, Braveheart, and Bowman.
What do we think happened in that scene, Christos?
Spencer Garrett is Tarses, right?
Yeah.
I think maybe Warp was questioning him on the job, and which is maybe calls to a later thing that happens later in the episode where Beverly's sitting in on his interrogation and questioning and trying to defend him. So that would maybe lend a little bit more to Beverly having a little bit more to do in this episode, and her always looking out for her people too. And so I think that's where that might be.
It also could be that if Worf found the hypospray, took it to sickbay and said, "What is this? Let's analyze what it is," and that's where he found the. Yeah.
I wonder if I can get my hands on the script and I'm going to read it. See if it's in the script.
Yeah.
As all good things later establishes, it was actually Norah Satie who initially requested and required Jean-Luc Picard to take command of the Enterprise when he first received that assignment. This fact is not mentioned in this episode, which is very interesting. That's a big accolades she's given him to suddenly turn on him so fast.
Well, speaking of Spencer Garrett, who played Simon Tarses, he would again appear in Star Trek as a Starfleet hologram in the 7th season Voyager 2-parter Flesh and Blood. And the character of Simon Tarses would be a major character in Beta Canon. He served on DS9 before becoming Chief Medical Officer on Captain Esri Dax's ship, the USS Aventine.
I want to pull in one more part where this episode affects a different series for trivia. So this episode establishes the technology of genetically encoding secret information in order to be carried discreetly inside a carrier's body. And a similar technology is seen to be used by the Sullivan Cabal in Broken Arrow Part 1 and Broken Arrow Part 2 from Enterprise. So this isn't actually necessarily
love me some
new
Sullivan
technology.
Yep.
Yeah, it's almost a bit Great Linky as well, isn't it? About transmitting information through bodily fluids. Let's leave that there, shall we?
Yeah, I think I've read somewhere. I think we're pretty close to being able to do this kind of thing now already.
Yeah.
Well, like the RNA sequences that were, developed through because of COVID and the vaccines. Those things.
Yeah. And now they're potentially on the brink of curing cancer with that. Let's go. And then probably my favorite piece of trivia from this is the episode that gave us the infamous Picard facepalm meme.
I knew you'd like that. Meme of the week.
Meme of the week. And this is like the number of times I see this posted in non-Trek related Reddit discussions when people are just over something. There will just be Picard. Yeah.
Brilliant. Right, well, it's time for final thoughts, guys. And before we get into the kind of who did it better we've previously covered, I'm quite interested in your genuine final thoughts of this episode. So, Kristin, what do you think?
I think that this episode is forever a perfect example of why Trek is such an important cultural zeitgeist. This episode in particular brings to light the atrocities of Drumhead trials and witch trials, and shows how far the justice system has come, but still how valuable it is. Because we still see justice for me, not for thee, or justice for thee, not for me, right? It's so important to see how this inequity of the doling out of justice can still be. So it's always so sobering to remember that the people doling out justices and death penalties and major impacts to human lives are all just valuable humans as well. And it's a lot to carry with you, and Trek demonstrated that so well.
I'd like to follow that, because what you said for all humans, like that's one thing that this episode really brings out, like looking at laws and wanting to defend and, uphold these laws. But then are the laws right for all or for only a select few? Yeah. And how do we determine those differences? Because for him to be hiding his lineage because it's illegal, like that's not a law that is for all. That's a racist law.
Yeah.
And we're going off the fact that she's going to establish Tarses' innocence. Well, he's already innocent. You're not going to establish it. It is established. And she twists that. And it's like, well, if you're innocent, you have nothing to hide. That has been said too many times as we lose our freedoms. And another thing that this episode brings out is Norah Satie does not believe the science. Like the whole explosion, well, there's got to be some other thing. And so we have to keep on going. And so she doesn't accept the answer that's right there in the face. And I just think that's too similar to what we are experiencing right now. And It's a great episode. If I'm going to say who did it best, I'm going Drumhead on this one.
Right. Okay. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
What's your final thought?
Well, so Amy, that whole thing you said about laws not being just and laws being only designed for some people and not others, that is literally Neera's whole argument in Ad Astra per Aspera. That so these laws aren't, they might not be, just because we have a law doesn't mean the law is just or right. Yes. And that is literally the whole argument in Ad Astra per Aspera. I love that you made that point. I will say my final thoughts on this episode is this is basically Star Trek's A Few Good Men. And I can't remember what came out first, but A Few Good Men is Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. And Jack Nicholson plays this 4-star admiral, general or whatever, and he's really high up and he's done some wrong things. And while on the stand, finally in the end, Tom Cruise gets him to break and basically professes guilt indirectly. He doesn't even realize he did it until he did it. And it's like, yeah, you're damn right I did. And it reminds me very much of this final scene where Satie basically her emotions take hold of her and she shows her cards and says too much. And basically she loses her whole argument and the whole thing goes away because finally she was rattled emotionally and confessed basically her kind of guilt. And so I love the parallel. I don't know which came first or who influenced who, but it's basically Star Trek's A Few Good Men.
I love it when the Admiral just gets up and walks out. So I'm done.
Yep.
My final thoughts on this, I'm just going to end with a saying that blowing out someone else's candle doesn't make yours burn brighter, as that message of you don't become more powerful and more credible just by commenting that other people are inadequate or incompetent. And I think it's a strong lesson for leaders everywhere in order to kind of avoid paranoid and toxic workplace environments. I'm very passionate about this because I've seen it in the past. And, I think, Kristin, you mentioned PTSD earlier. I got a lot of PTSD watching this episode because it's so good. And this isn't really science fiction, this episode. This is just sociology at its finest.
Yes.
Great episode. Yeah. Amy, you've already said who you think did it better, the Drumhead. Kristin, let's come to you. Is the previously covered in this series we've done Strange New Worlds, Ad Astra per Aspera. How does it stack up to this episode for you?
This is literally Sophie's choice. How do you choose between these two episodes? So you got to give credit where credit's due. The Drumhead did it first, quite a few decades before, quite before Strange New Worlds. So I will probably defer to the Drumhead because of that. But the ending and the outcome of Ad Astra per Aspera, say that real quick. I felt that outcome was just more satiating. Because things turned out well. And that also shows what happens when you pull in competent people to run a proper and legitimate court.
I will always say that Drumhead is top 10 TNG for me. And I can watch Drumhead over and over and over again. But I previously said, and I still hold to, that Ad Astra per Aspera is probably in my top 5 Trek episodes ever. I just watched it a few weeks ago and I cried again. I've seen that episode more than 10 times already, and it's so new. And it's hands down for me, Ad Astra per Aspera.
The goosebumps I get every single time.
I need to get that tattoo. I keep on saying, I know what I want to get that tattooed on me with a Trek Delta.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Nice. I am always delighted, actually, when new Star Trek takes reverence over classic Berman era that we all cherish so much as a comfort blanket. And I agree, Christos, this is one of the occasions, and I'm going to go for Ad Astra per Aspera as well. And I like, actually, Kristin, that you just said that one of the points of difference in this episode, because they are quite similar, is that the guest star in that episode was so competent and amazing and inspiring and just a powerhouse of, I love this person. So shout out to you, Teddy, here, even though we're not reviewing that episode. But yeah, I think it just connected a lot with me with the whole don't ask, don't tell aspect.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and let's also add the commonality of the amazing diction that both actresses speak with and amazing outfits. It's an
yes.
Yes.
The fashion.
What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Mark, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristin. Whether you've got Xbox or Nintendo, check out Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey, a self-proclaimed gamer who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. 2 episodes enter the arena, 1 comes out victorious. Join hosts Joe and Kevin and a guest as they debate which should win the Batleth battle. Grab your popcorn as you listen to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out. Hosted by Mark and Matt. Don your apron for The Food Replicator, where Matthew eats and drinks his way through the Star Trek cocktail and 3 cookbooks. Beam Aboard Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Steven. In order to not repeat it, listen to History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissie and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissie and Thad. Curl up with a good book and delve into Beta Canon with Peter, host of the online Trek Book Club on Twitter, and his new companion, Trek Book Club podcast. Test your Trek knowledge with Trexperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey. Whether you're a member of Starfleet Federation or Planetary Union, go check out Union Federation, covering current Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Head over to YouTube and watch The View Screen live on Sundays, your Trek-inspired talk show hosted by Kelvin and Amy, with Season 2 starting in September for a 10-week run. Spill the tea with Christos while he discusses current Trek news and events and explores the world of fandom via guest interviews, all with a LGBTQIA+ perspective on What's the Tea Bab. And for our Patreon members, we have The Hive Mind with monthly script readings, Let's Fly, a Discovery reaction show, It's Green, a cornucopia of topics, Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Kristin, would you like to tell us what we are covering next week on All Good Things?
Oh, we are again doing an epic episode that people love to love. We are doing Alternate Realities Part 4, and it will be DS9 The Visitor. Oh. Everybody get your Kleenex boxes ready. Because it's Tony Todd.
Oh.
Well, while we await the wormhole to undergo its subspace inversion, we would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, or on our Discord server, and you can continue our discussion there. You can also reach us at All Good Pod on Bluesky. Please make sure you follow the network on Bluesky and Instagram at BQN Podcasts. We've also partnered with our friends at the Fandom Podcast Network, where you can find us by searching the master feed, and the links can be found in the show notes. So, Kristin, where can people find you when you're not power dressing, taking people down a peg or two in the name of righteousness?
You know me, I love my 6-inch heels just because they give me that little bit more authority over people when you literally look down on them. No, I'm joking. You can find me on Instagram at KStrats. I am, of course, on Facebook at the BQN Network, and always on Reddit at user Garaksfanclub. And Christos, where can people find you when you are not fighting the good fight to protect people from laws that are unjust?
You can find me on Instagram and Bluesky at GreekSD. You can find me in our Discord server. You can find me in the BQN Collective over there on Facebook. And you can also find me on Instagram at What's the T-Beth. And Amy, where can people find you when you're not showing up dressed to the nines in your killer Admiral gown?
Oh, yes, please. I need to do that. So you can find me here on the network where I'm co-hosting Union Federation, where we are talking new Trek and the Orville. We're going to be starting our character review of the main cast of the Orville coming up. Very looking forward to that. I am on our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, and on our Discord server, and on Bluesky at BQN Podcast. So, Kelvin, where can people find you when you're not the smiling assassin?
Great comeback. You can find me on the socials at Kelvin's Timeline, or you can come and get me in the BQN Collective Facebook group.
Here at BQN, we will never make you listen to an ad. And not even Gates McFadden can say that. And if you'd like to keep all of your shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can join our Hive Mind reaction show, script readings, and enjoy our special patron-only shows of It's Green and Amy's Math Moment. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details.
And if becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still support the show by sharing the posts on social media, talking about it with your friends, or hitting the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leaving us a star rating and a written review. That really does help others to find our show.
At this time, we would like to thank our very own associate producers, Mahendran Radhakrishnan and Jenediah Seastrum. A special thanks to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music, and Mark White for our show brand artwork.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us
as we search out
all good things.